All you parents out there that end up losing a baby, I'm so happy for you. I'm so happy you lost that baby and you wasn't able to give birth for whatever reason. Why are you crying for? Seriously, why are you crying that you didn't have a baby? You wasn't able to give birth. Are you crying because you wanted a baby? Do you realize how selfish that is? Why are you assuming that the baby wants to be born in the first place? What if the baby ends up having a terrible life? Or what if they end up just not liking life and wanting to die, and just wanting a peaceful way out? But is there a peaceful way out in this world? Hell no, there isn't. Not in most countries, it's hard to get, especially if you're not a terminally ill person. Your child could be mentally sane and they're just tired of life, They see the world for what it is. Exactly. Well, why are you crying that you didn't bring another wage slave into this world, you selfish person? You selfish mum or dad? Why are you guys crying for? No, you're not bringing another wage slave into this world. Do you really like working that much that you think someone else should be forced into it? Like, what's wrong with you? Why are you assuming they're gonna like that? Why are you assuming they're gonna like being in a physical body where you gotta take care of all these needs every single day? You gotta eat, otherwise you're gonna get hungry and angry and hangry, like they call it. You're gonna get aggravated because you're hungry. Your body needs to constantly eat. It can't sustain itself on its own. It's a terrible design. Why are you so angry that you're not forcing another slave into this physical machine that just has to eat and shit, and it's not perfect at all? The human body is a terrible design. You can get headaches, you can get all sorts of pains and migraines and aches every day. Why are you crying over that? Why are you crying over depriving someone of all that pain and suffering and misery? You should be celebrating that shit. You should be celebrating your stillborn miscarriage or your abortion or whatever. You should be celebrating that shit and never doing it again. You shouldn't make that mistake again, all you mothers and fathers out there thinking that you could force someone into this life and they're just gonna like it and they're just gonna do what you say. Like, you just want a little slave. If you really want a kid so bad, go and adopt a kid or foster a kid that's already alive. Do you really have to force someone else here just because they're your own flesh and blood and DNA? Like, do you know how selfish that sounds? Like, really? Have you even thought about that? Or did you just think, hey, I love my partner, let's do a labor of love and make a baby, like all this dumb shit that society tells you? Did you even think about like how selfish that is, forcing somebody into this world? Maybe not, because maybe your life has been good and you never even thought about the fact that you was forced into this life, but you was, and you don't know what life could hold in the future. But you know what will happen to you in the future. You will suffer and die, probably painfully and horrendously and scary too. Everyone's gonna die. So why are you so upset that you didn't force someone else into this world just to be born and inevitably die anyways? Birth and death are the same thing, really. You can't have one without the other. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Just like with life and suffering, you can't have a life without suffering. And your potential child's suffering could have been so bad. What if they fucking got murdered? What if they got stabbed? What if they got I don't know, what if they got a terrible disease when they were young and they have to deal with pain every day? Like, why are you so sad that they didn't have to go through that shit? Or even bullying? You should be happy that they don't have to go through that shit. What is wrong with you? You parents out there that are crying over your fucking stillborn kid, you're fucking mentally messed up in the head. You need to take a deep look at yourself and realize that is your life so empty that you need to have a little baby to fulfill you? Like, really? And yes, the baby will fulfill you, but did you hear what I said? What I just said? Is your life really so empty that you need that baby to fulfill you? I mean, do you realize how needy that is? I mean, women don't like needy guys. If you're a mother and you're needy like that, you can't say that guys are needy, because you're literally forcing someone out of non-existence and to be born out of your fucking vagina and then come into this world where all sorts of bad things happen and could happen to your child. There's no guarantee that they won't happen. There's no guarantee that they will happen either. But you can't protect your child from danger in this world. You just can't. You overestimate your ability to do that. All you mothers and fathers out there, especially, you do. What are you gonna do if like a bunch of guys with knives or guns comes after you? What are you gonna do then? You can't defend your child in that situation. You can't. Or if it's a fucking bear attack, if you live in like Alaska or some shit, I don't know. or a disease. You can't defend against that shit. The point is, there's things in life that you can't protect your kid against. If you have a kid, you've already done the crime. You've already risked their safety and security and happiness and well-being. You can't say you care about that kid, not anymore, because you forced them into this terrible, painful existence of being in a physical body that is prone to pain. It's as simple as that. So you should be celebrating the fact that your baby died in the womb, died inside its mother, died in peace, died unconscious pretty much, died before it became a pathetic human being. Human beings are an overrated species. Have you seen all the terrible things they do to each other and continue to do? They're overrated as fuck, man. They're a terrible fucking species. So why would you make another human being? That human being that died inside you could have become a serial killer. You don't know. It might not have been a good person just because you and your partner might be a good person. You might have had a serial killer that died inside you, or a rapist, or whatever. A terrible person who could have gotten away with hurting people, many people. You don't know. Because it happens all the time in this messed up world. Like you parents that have a stillborn or miscarriage kid, how could you seriously cry over the fact that your kid was not born into this terrible fucking world? I mean, really? How dumb are you? Like, seriously? Are you dumber than SpongeBob? Like, I'm being serious. How can you be sad over this shit? You need to just take care of a kid that's already here if you really want one. Or just don't reproduce at all. Or just have a fucking pet, you know? Don't bring somebody else into this fucked up world. You should be fucking celebrating that they're not going to be born into this world. Do you know how much pain and misery you probably and suffering that you probably spared them? Like, seriously? How can you be crying over this shit? You're crying over missing out on pain and suffering. Does that sound sane to you? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? What the fuck is wrong with you? You're crying over missing out on pain and suffering. Yes, there's pain and pleasure in life too, but does someone that doesn't exist, do they even care about good things? Do they care about getting kissed by a girl? Do they care about getting a nice meal? Do they care about being out of danger and having a good sense of peace of mind? No, they don't care about that because they don't exist and they don't need it either. They're better off than anybody that's alive. Anybody. Because they don't need anything. Even the richest people in the world can starve if they don't eat for like a couple days, if they do that intentionally, of course, because obviously they can afford food and they can get a disease which they can't cure. So really just think about that, all you parents out there who have a miscarriage or a stillborn child. You're crying over your kid missing out on a lot of suffering in this world potentially, and inevitable death and inevitable wage slavery. You're crying over that shit. Like, seriously? What the fuck is wrong with you? You're a psychopath basically, and you just don't realize it. That's what makes you worse than serial killers and all the terrible people in this world. You're a psychopath, and you don't even realize it as well. And you're the people that make the psychopaths. It's not they don't come from fucking hell. No, they were born. They came into this world just like the rest of us, even though they do things that we would never do. The terrible people in this world. They're the same species as us, apparently, but they do terrible things that we would never do because for whatever reason, their upbringing or their genetics, nature or nurture, I don't know. But they were born the same way that anyone else who's normal or good was born, or decent, you could say, you know? Um, So why are you crying over that shit? It makes no sense. All you parents out there that have a stillborn kid, stop crying over not creating a potential serial killer, or just stop crying over sparing someone from a lot of pain and misery and suffering and death. Why the fuck are you crying over that shit? You should be fucking wiping those tears and smiling, and not and learning from your mistakes so that you don't do that shit again, and you don't force somebody into this world who could be a victim to all that pain and suffering and inevitable death. So, yeah, you're a fucking psychopath if you're crying over that shit. Simple.